I'm just a poor wayfaring stranger, traveling through this world below. There's no sickness, toil, or danger in that bright land to which I go. I'm going there to see my Father and all my loved ones who've gone on. I'm just a going over Jordan. I'm just a
There's not room for everyone in this room. That makes me happy. Thank you for everybody who's here. A lot of you, like my brother already said, are here because you knew JT, and I cherish you for being here. It's good for my soul. Others of you may not have known JT, but you walked alongside my parents, or maybe me or Chris, for part of our journey with JT, and you are a blessing to us. We're going to need you in the coming weeks and months as we prepare to take our first steps towards healing. And when the day comes that you need someone to lean on, we will remember that you were here. So I only have just a few minutes, and I can't possibly say everything that there is to say. I know that for certain because I tried it, and when I read the first draft, it lasted 41 minutes. So I cut it down to just the most important stuff, and it only lasted 31. So I'm afraid you're going to have to just sit here. No. I'm just going to have to paint with some very broad strokes. I'm going to have to just hit a few important points, things that I want you to know about our life and our walk with my brother, who, by the way, I am proud to claim as my brother. So it's no secret that JT, Jesus does come in here. But it's no secret that JT struggled mightily with severe mental illness for most of his life. He had borderline personality disorder, which very often is considered completely untreatable. But it would be tragic if we defined him by his sickness. A cancer patient retains her personhood apart from the sickness. And no matter how far the cancer progresses, nobody thinks of that person becoming the cancer. And yet, with mental illness, is that not the mistake that we make? We forget that somewhere in there is the real person. Somewhere in there was JT, who is beautiful. JT had a great sense of humor. He was always looking for an opportunity to turn the ordinary into something completely unexpected. One of his favorite things, as you saw in these pictures, just showing up in photo bombs and whatnot, is to cause things to just show up as if out of nowhere. One of my favorite stories and my mom's favorite stories about him is these precious moments down here, which I brought a few. Just nice little figurines. This is one I gave my mom. It says it's better to give than receive. I thought that was cute. So she's got a number of these ceramic things, and one day JT decided, unannounced and completely in secret, to add to the ceramic collection. and he just added a rock right in the middle of it. Nobody knows how long the rock was there before Mom finally dusted and said, "What is this?" So this, on that shelf, is the only thing that is actually a precious moment. I'm going to put it right here because it belongs with the others. I've occasionally wondered about those folks who had used their Christmas lights to decorate the back of their privacy fence so that it said peace. I wonder what they thought when they came home one night. And due to JT's re-engineering, it now gloriously announced fence. Thank you very much. Open a gift from JT. You never knew. It might be a 12-year-old can of sardines. Again. It might be a whoopee cushion or a fart machine. It might also be a flashing LED dog collar because he knows you want to be able to see your dog at night when you let him out and he runs off. His last gift to my girls was golden kazoos, which he proudly announced to me in an email some time ago. They came a long way. They had to come all the way from China, from bankgood.com. But he said, "I ordered a kazoo for each of the girls," he said. "I figured they can practice their tone with singing, and they get some relentless, annoying practice." Sorry about that, Paul. Thank you. Thank you. Really, thank you. JT loved his nieces and nephew more than he loved anybody. They were the only light I think I really ever saw in his eyes for these last few years. And he loved so deeply. He always has felt so deeply. Maybe the thing he loved the most was innocence. It's why he loved animals. It's why he rescued dogs who nobody else thought could be rescued. He just wanted to help people. If he could see a way to help somebody, he would do it, even if it was against his own best interest. He would not give a second thought about stopping to help somebody on the side of a dark road in a bad part of town, even at 2 a.m. in the morning. If he found somebody hurting, he was the first one there to try and make it better. He hardly had money for groceries, but he wouldn't think a thing about driving his friends all over town because he could. He was often taken advantage of because he was so open with all that he had, always offering a place to stay, a moment of refuge, a place to be. I could go on a long time about my brother's compassion. It was deep and abiding. He was a person of humor and of wit, a lover of justice, truth, honesty, and perhaps most of all, integrity. My brother may be the most authentic person I have ever known. He refused to make himself acceptable to others by hiding himself. His yes meant yes, and his no meant no. Full stop. No making nice for the sake of letting others think and be comfortable in their own personal inconsistencies. No triangulation to fool you into thinking maybe he's somebody you will like. And almost without exception, if he thought you were a hypocrite, he told you so. You might try and point that finger right back at him. Good luck. Hypocrisy was not something there was a lot of in my brother's life. His commitment to authenticity demanded that people meet him on terms he could live up to. Like a modern-day Holden Caulfield, his search for authenticity left him feeling utterly alone. Everywhere he looked, he saw artifice. His laser-like perception penetrated every facade. He hated fake. He hated hypocrisy and despised a liar. Perhaps it was his aversion to hypocrites that drove JT to be such an authentic person. He lived his life as a giant, thunderous roar. Here I am. This is all of me. Nothing is hidden. Isn't there somebody who will love me on my terms? Uncompromising. There are a lot of us who loved JT, but precious few could do it on the terms his sickness demanded. Not me. I couldn't do it. In the last few days, I've heard from others who tried, but the sickness sucked them dry too. Mom and Dad, you were the only ones. JT was taken from us far too soon. The medical examiner's report will say September 18th, 2017. We know it was the 16th, thereabouts, based on the evidence. But those of us who loved my brother know that he was taken from us long before that. Over the course of decades, he was increasingly obscured from us by the ever-advancing cancer of severe mental illness. I want you to go with me for just a minute to where JT lived. The starting point for his sickness was a depression deeper and darker than anything I am likely to ever know. And then, on top of that, as if that were not enough, he had downward cycles that would plummet him into the deepest states of despair imaginable. His sickness would hide all hope from his view. For him, there was no reprieve from the hellish cycle. While he was with us, his brain chemistry rendered him unable to experience joy or happiness. Consider a few joyful occasions in your own life. Maybe you got married. Maybe a child was born. You reunited with a long-lost friend. Imagine if, in these times, your experience of happiness was limited to an empty, cognitive awareness that this is the place where happiness is supposed to come, and it doesn't. Imagine your whole life being with others around you, and they experience joy, they get to be happy, and you care about them deeply, and you want to participate with them, and your only reward is an even sharper familiarity with the jagged, cutting edges of the joy-shaped crater in your own heart. What if every moment experienced by those closest to you just wounded you deeper? If that was your world, what would you do? What would I do? I would learn to protect myself. I would learn to distance myself from the pain and from my loved ones who, through no fault of their own, caused me to ache so deeply. And once I succeeded in distancing myself, I would look around and see suddenly that I was alone. And with a panicked sense of abandonment, I would realize what I had done. And I would frantically try to pull those same people close again before they left me for good, only to start it all over. This was JT's sickness, but it was not JT. Over the course of decades, this beast of mental illness swallowed but did not consume JT, inch by excruciating inch. It sucked him in, covering him up like a great tumor, hiding him from the people who loved him most. Over time, it became harder and harder to look past the sickness and to see my brother. Mom was the only one who never lost sight, not for a minute. Most tragically, when the sickness was at its worst, even JT would lose sight of himself. The sickness would fool him into believing that above all else, his misery was his very identity, as if it were a ring forged by Sauron in the fires of Mordor. The sickness enthroned JT's misery as both JT's protector and his nemesis. The sickness guarded the misery with ferocious jealousy, lying to my brother that he was only unique in the world because no person had ever suffered like him, and no person would ever suffer like him again. And if JT ever saw the slightest glimmer that he might escape the misery, if somebody might say something suggesting he could, the sickness tightened its grip and thrashed about inside of him in a violent rage until it could take another swallow and suck my brother deeper still inside its bowels. And slowly over time, the sickness taught us who loved JT that we were not allowed to try and help him, except within carefully prescribed boundaries designed to protect the misery. Such a dark place, and this is just a tiny sliver of JT's struggle. I would have preferred to skip all of this, but the truth is, JT's story cannot be told without it, because if you don't understand all of this, you can't understand what comes next. What comes next are two of my very favorite words in the whole Bible. But God. But God, in his amazing grace, provided a lifeline to JT. My mother fearlessly stared down that all-consuming beast from her knees daily as she reached down its wicked throat and held on to my brother. She never would lose sight of him. No natural force could have sustained her, but God buttressed her. Time and time again, she loved JT back from the abyss. My father engaged in daily hand-to-hand combat with the sickness, and against all human inclination, never gave up. I know he felt like it. But God strengthened him, even when he didn't feel like it. Left alone, the sickness would have fully consumed JT. But God gave him my mother and my father, who together kept open a window of hope for my brother. And I mean hope in all capital letters. Because of hope, JT was able to find himself again, against all odds. But God made it happen. Because of hope, JT knew and said with his mouth that he believed in what Jesus did even if he didn't understand it. But who among us can understand one whose ways are so vastly higher than ours? In the depths of his soul, I believe that because of Mom and Dad, JT has hope which rests in Christ alone. Today, JT has been saved from the menace of his broken flesh. Today, JT is finally freed from the terrible shroud of sickness. And for the first time, he no longer needs to fear other people's joy bringing him pain. Praise God for his ultimate healing. So I am sad that I must wait the rest of my life before I get to know what my brother is like without this terrible sickness that has always poisoned our relationship. But God has given me hope. So close your eyes now, JT, for just a moment. When you open them, I will be there, and we will finally be the brothers both of us always wanted to be.
I'm going there to see my father. He said he'd meet me when I come. I'm just a going over Jordan. I'm just a going